Good afternoon, everyone. I was gonna say good morning. It's still early for me, I guess. My name is Jose Adorno, and today we're going to be talking about the Northstar implementation for educators and students. Last week, we had a Northstar implementation for agencies, and this is kind of like the round where we're going to closing with Northstar in regards to sessions, but we will be following through and sharing the videos and all that stuff with everyone. Um, One of the things that I will be sharing with everyone after the sessions is the tech support for digital ATDN. Those that know digital ATDN, one of the services that we offer is tech support, where we give you support regarding anything technology, right? So if you're using Northstar, which is a great example, but you're using Google Applied Digital Skills, or you're using um, different online resources, we offer tech support with those. So you could schedule for free a 20-minute session where you could just reach out to us. We could talk. You could talk about anything, any questions. If you need tutorial or a walkthrough, or you just want to test something out, you need someone to test it out with. We are also that support that you need. Okay. Um, so before I even start discussing what we're doing today and all that, uh, those that met me last year, the whole thing was that, oh, I'm a real person, right? Because I met a lot of people virtually because digital ATN, when we started, everything was virtual. And slowly, as I met people in person, virtual, we transitioned to in person. So every time I was like, I'm a real boy, right? I'm not a square. I'm not this little window with a face. Um, so hopefully, if this is the first time that we're meeting, that if you see me, feel free to stop me, say, "Oh, hi, Jose. I was in so and so session." Because sometimes with the cameras off, the only thing I can see is circles and just your initials, unless you had a picture. So it's very difficult to pinpoint that, right? So again, just feel free that if you see me around, stop me. We could have a chat. I love talking. Amy can attest to that. And for anyone that's new this year, welcome to Digital Dedication, or if it's the first time that you see me, well, welcome. My name is Jose Adorno. I'm the statewide digital learning coordinator at Advance since 2021. Prior to that, if you attended any of the Excel or Google Sheet sessions, I was part of that group. I was usually presenting for that in data downloads. But prior to Ed Advance, I have over 10 years of experience in adult education, from LACE as data administrator, data entry, proctoring CASA assessments as an MEDP advisor, a lot of tech support with digital literacy, especially Google Education since shut down. That's where I gained a fresh new set of skills, right, that I've been using since. And before that as well. But also like computer lab support. So with that that lens, I've been bringing into Northstar how strategies and to use Northstar and that kind of thing. So again, just feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation. I'll stop periodically and take a look and answer them as we go. So our agenda today, well, I forgot to change the last one. So we have the digital literacy. We're going to look at what is digital literacy. We're going to talk about a little bit about Northstar. We won't go into detail with all the features in Northstar. One of the requirements we had for the session is to watch the getting started. However, if that wasn't the case, you can still participate and you'll still get information out of this. But just again, if you wanted to get like the whole gist of what Northstar is, all the different components, I'll have the video linked to the session so you could also view that as well. We're going to be talking about smart gear. And for those that attended the agency, the Northstar implementation for agency, the first two are going to be very similar. They're going to be identical, really. Where it's really going to start to change is when we go into smart gear. We're going to look at it a little initially the same way. But once we go into the plan we're going to look at scope and sequence. And that's where we're going to look at that resource, which for me is the creme of the crop. And I'm going to say that several times. That's the resource that's going to give you that guidance as to how you're going to be leveraging not just the modules in Northstar, but the standards as well. So our objectives for today. Number one, we're going to define digital literacy. We're going to create a goal to implement Northstar in your classroom that aligns with both the SMART and GEAR acronyms, which hence SMART GEAR. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to identify the resources aligned to the Northstar online learning modules. And finally, and so that's where you could, like, students can work asynchronously. And finally, we're going to differentiate digital literacy by leveraging both the Northstar online learning and scope and sequence resources. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to talk about what is digital literacy. And this is like that deja vu I was referring to for the administrative admins that came in for their first session. So what comes to mind when we talk about digital literacy? I'm going to post a link here. That code is not going to work for this one. I actually closed the link when I was going into Menti. I closed it. So use the link in the chat to do your Menti response. And this is what comes to mind. We're doing a word cloud. So what works nicely with a word cloud is if you do one word, then anything that matches that one word is going to show up. And the more it shows up, the bigger the word is. If you wanted to do the code, that would be the QR code if you wanted to scan it and answer through your phone. Let me know if you guys could access it. I see first three. There you go. Okay, perfect. Close this part here. Go back to we have internet navigation, collaboration, access, innovation, synchronous, computer, asynchronous, accessibility, 21st century tool. Nice. That's the first time I've seen that one since we've been running these workloads. Technology. So computer and technology are the big ones, right? Yeah, good job, everyone. Thank you for sharing. It will remain open. So if you present, I'm reading out loud, right? If you if you post anything after, it's going to reflect. And what's going to happen is that when you receive a copy of the slides, you're going to have this right here with what were your responses for that session or for today's session, I mean. So what is digital literacy? NDIA recommends the American Library Association's definition of digital literacy via the Digital Literacy Task Force. I linked it there. They have a lot of definitions. This is the National Digital Inclusion and Alliance. This is anything digital equity. They'll address the digital divide. They have a lot of resources here. And they have a lot of connections like to other states, like what other states are doing, what services they're providing, that kind of thing. It's a really good resource to have to refer. And the definition goes, digital literacy is the ability to use information and communication technologies to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information, requiring both cognitive and technical skills. So when we're looking at digital literacy, the way that you're interacting with technology is going to revolve with those four, right? You're going to be finding information. All of a sudden, you're evaluating, you're skimming through some information. You're going to be creating, if you're adding a post, you're creating a document. You're going to communicate. You're going to share it with people. So it's that it's that approach of you going through all these different pieces or aspects with how you engage with information in digital literacy. And with that in mind, thinking that we're looking at find, evaluate, create, and communicate, we're going to we're going to start looking at what is Northstar. Northstar is a digital literacy program that assists learners in building digital skills to use across different devices and programs. These skills can be applied in daily life activities. The program also provides an array of resources that can support teachers and agencies when teaching digital skills to learners. Originally, well, not originally, we had on October 1st meets the first year that we've had Northstar available for agencies. It was purchased, it was statewide license was purchased, and it would have been nice to have a session, let's do the agency session on the first, but that was Sunday, so that didn't work out. And really doubt that people wanted to join on Sunday to talk about Northstar. But that being the first year, and one of the things that revolved with, because it's focusing on digital literacy, there's a lot that we could unpack from the program, but there's some requirements that, as we're going to start seeing, provided some challenges, right? And the first one was that Northstar recommends the program for students that have a 211 CASAS reading score. This applies to the Northstar online learning system and the lessons. So the 211 CASAS score is a fourth grade reading level. So when we're looking at ESL students, for example, that are under that score, it tends to be challenging because it's how it's written, the modules, and how you're navigating through the content is written in that fourth grade level aspect. So what happened, or the misconception that ended up happening a lot last year, is that the online learning system, which is where you get the modules independently, that is what range at that 211. There's a lot of supplemental resources, which is what we're doing today, where you could scaffold and bring some of those standards and some of those resources into the classroom indirectly. And that's one of the objectives that we're going to be looking at. The next requirement is a pair of headphones or earbuds for the insole. And the third one will be access to a PC, a laptop, or a Chromebook. So here, please note, while tablets and smartphones may access Northstar, the modules and assessments may not score properly. Main factor is, I'm pointing the screen right now with my mouse. When you click, you have a precise click where you want to press. So if you're looking at, press the menu button on the screen, you'll hover your mouse over the menu and you click. When you're doing with your finger has a lot more, covers more space. And because it's a desktop view, what you're getting through these modules, when you're tapping on it, you're not going to know for sure if you're tapping the menu button or something else. So when that happens, a student might get it wrong, and I'm like, yeah, they can't understand why. So I know I selected the right one, but it's because of the of how you're interacting with that touch piece. I've tried it. For some of them, they're a little challenging, especially like right click will be another example. So just to keep in mind, while there's some modules that you could kind of get away with it and do it that way, especially when you're doing assessments or you're doing some practice, it might not work efficiently. Amy, if I get my chat disappeared. So if something comes up, just let me know.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So the digital literacy focus, there's three areas. You have the essential computer skills, you have your essential software skills, and the using technology in daily life. So if you go down, you see basic computer skills, internet basics, using email, Windows, Mac OS. Your essential software will be Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Google Docs. So these are like that content you create. And then you have using technology in daily life, where you have like social media, information literacy, career search skills, and so on and so forth. The way I like to break this down is the following. You're going to look at essential computer skills with how do you interact with the technology, right? The essential software skills is what can you do with the technology, and the using technology in daily life is how do you apply the technology in day-to-day activities. And here you could put it in the chat. And while you do that, I can pull up the chat so I can see. What are some devices that people use? If you want to unmute and say it as well, you can. Or break the silence.
I know that some of our students, they use their iPhone. A lot of iPhones or Androids.
Yep. So the smartphone, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Nice. Laptop. Amy, I pulled it up. Chromebook, cell phone, computer, laptop, smartphone. Yeah. Good job. So we have our four main types of devices, right? You have your cell phone, smartphone, iPhone, Android phone. You have your laptop. I mean, your desktop, your laptop, and then your tablet. We're gonna do this activity. Thank you, Risa. We're gonna do an activity called Can You Tell? So the instructions are identify the device used in the video, name the skill the user is using to interact with the device, and guess what is the activity. There's no audio, so once you see it, it's just a matter of you observing what you see. And as soon as you know, you could put it in the chat, and then I can start. If you go so fast that you answer right away, I'll pause for a second just to give everyone to talk to put their answer, and then we'll continue. So, are you ready? Okay. So I don't. Oh, there you go. Mouse, right? So we see a mouse. What did we see? How was the What was the interaction? Scrolling. Yep. Good job. So it was a mouse. You were scrolling on the mouse. What could be the activity that person was doing? The user. Could be one example.
An example, yeah, it could be like moving up and down a web page to find.
Moving up and down a web page, right? So they could be Andrea said searching. Yeah, it could be maybe reading, right? Maybe browsing your news feed or things like that. Yeah. Awesome. Making choices on assignment. Oh, see, it's cool, right? Okay, next one. Smartphone scrolling. Scrolling on smartphone. Smartphone scrolling. And what would be an activity? Good job, everyone. What would be an activity that you could be doing here? Reading an article, browsing, right? Shopping, looking for information, looking for articles, searching. Okay, good job. So I'm gonna do one more. I don't want to talk too much because I'll end up spoiling everything. So we're gonna do one more, and then we're gonna talk about it. Laptop scrolling through images. You're looking at the little corner right here, right? Yep. Taking notes, scrolling using a mouse pad. Right? So we have the laptop, we have again scrolling, and you're searching. Blogs. Also using some keystrokes, right? So here was more specific, maybe in Pinterest or something like that, right? So let's discuss, and you could do this in the chat. You could also unmute and share. What was the same between the videos, and what was different between the videos? So what was the same is that you were scrolling across all three, right? All scrolling was the same, different devices. Yes. Same scrolling. Yeah. So even though, I'm going to skip to the next one, even though we couldn't see what that person was doing in each of those cases, I mean, we could have little hints. We weren't able to see, but we were able to identify the action, right? And the action of scrolling is similar across all three, but they weren't necessarily the same because it depended on how you interact with the device. So if you're looking at scrolling, which is a specific vocabulary, right? We had browsing as well as another vocabulary piece. You had the scrolling motion with the mouse, which was you just you just click on, not click, but you use the roller to go up and down. In a laptop on the mouse pad or the trackpad, they were using two fingers, right? And going up and down. And then on the phone, then you had like that one finger swipe up and down. So it's the same motion, and you could more or less say what they were doing. But in this case, the way that they were interacting was different because then one was one was the wheel, one was the screen, and the other one was a pad or a space, right? We were also able to identify the similarities with different devices. Now, what I wanted to say with this is that you have users in the classroom and even teachers and stuff that they have preferences with those devices. So maybe they're able to use browse. I like to use my cell phone for certain things because it's easier for me to navigate through it because I have shortcuts already made, and I could swipe up and down, and I could save or send it quickly to an email or something like that. But there's you have someone in the classroom that doesn't know how to use a computer, and for them it's the approach of, oh wait, I don't know anything about a PC, but they know how to engage with the content that they find online. It's just a matter of identifying what are those digital skills that they know, and then how they could bring it over so they could interact with a different device. So here we have the Northstar implementation plan. This was something that was shared for the agencies. We're not going to go in detail with the implementation plan. However, I kept a copy here so you guys could see. Because the big thing last year, we had two scenarios. You had the agency where they had to figure out, they had access to Northstar, and they could implement Northstar. There's agencies that reached out to us. There were some agencies that were already using it. And it was identifying what things are important that I need to use for my agency in order to use Northstar. And that was at the agency side. On the teacher side, you have access to all these resources, but where do you start? What is the best module to select? What do I need to make sure that my students know before they go into Northstar? And I want to set them up for success. How do I do that? So for this year, we started with an implementation plan for agencies. And the implementation plan helped with guiding a digital literacy goal, identifying features that you would like to use at an agency level, and then it was addressing potential barriers with support strategies and services for students and teachers, and then insights throughout the plan. You have them linked here, and this is just more for reference, right? You have the example here where I go very specific with different ways that you could use Northstar, that kind of thing. However, one of the things that we want to do, even when you're writing objectives, we're talking digital literacy goal. So here it follows two sets of criteria. One is the SMART goal criteria, which a lot of agencies are familiar with, and the teachers. And then the next one is the GEAR guided principles. This was presented in an EdTech makerspace over the summer regarding AI, and it was called Camp GPT. And the whole reference here with the backpack would be, you're looking at technology, something that I've read several times. Socrates, back when you were bringing in writing for the first time, not you, but many years ago, his concern was that people were not going to use their brains as much because they didn't have to memorize things. But it allowed so many additional options in order to do more things. And it was really figuring out how to use writing as a tool that could that can assist you doing more. And we take notes every time we go to a presentation. We'll take our notes, and right now we take our notes on computer, but you're still engaging in that type of jotting down, or in this case typing the information that you want to go and remember or recall when it's time for you to use it. So it's using the tech with purpose. So here we have the SMART acronym. So we have specific, what will be accomplished, what actions will you take. We have measurable, what data will measure the goal. So it's how much and how well. You have achievable, which is if the goal is doable. Do you have the necessary skills and resources? Relevant, how does the goal align with broader goals? Why is the result important? And time bound, what is the time frame for accomplishing the goal? Here is an example of what would be one approach. So we have adult learners will work for a minimum of 1 hour a week to improve fundamental computer skills that are aligned to their personal career goals. Learners will demonstrate proficiency by passing Northstar's basic computer skills assessment with an 85% score by the end of the semester, right? And then you have to click here to find additional examples. This I recommend. There's examples on SMART goals where you could see it applied. I think they had one, like if it was writing, I wanted to write more, or I wanted to go to college, and it gives you like different ways how you could frame a SMART goal. So I just included it there as a reference if you wanted to use it for students. Now we're talking with GEAR, and again, this was presented with a focus for AI, but when I was part of the Camp GPT over the summer, it really just clicked like for technology in general, right? So you have the first one is G is goals before tools. So what is the SMART goal behind using the tool? How can the tools enhance learning while remaining aligned with the goals? So again, it's not, this is a shiny new tool, or we have access to Northstar now, but how can you use Northstar to support the goals that you have for your students? Or how does Northstar support the goals of the students, right? If they wanted to go to career, if they want to do CNA, what modules are going to help them reach or be more prepared to tackle those careers that they're looking for. So we have explore and have fun for E. So what systems can you have in place to allow users to feel comfortable using the tool? How can you create a safe place to increase engagement with the tool? So a lot of the things with technology is there's always the pressure that as a teacher, you have to deliver, right? You have to make sure that you understand this inside out and left and right and all around, right? But it's supposed to technology is supposed to facilitate and make things easier either to access, um, to understand, to manipulate something that, or save time, right? Something that will take you an entire month, you're able to work with less time. So how can you make users feel comfortable using the tool and just trying it out? Nothing that doesn't have to be a high stakes thing when you're using technology. The whole purpose of using it in the classroom in a controlled environment is that you could create your mistake, you can make your mistakes, and you could try it out and learn and make those mistakes there, feel comfortable, and then when you're out in the field, you're better prepared, right? And you're not as anxious. So we have A, anticipate barriers and challenges. Here is how it was dubbed in Camp GPT, was avoiding bugs because it was a camp, right? So here, what challenges do you anticipate with the use of the tool with your staff and students? What resources or services can you create and provide to bridge digital equity and practices? And then the last one we have is R, remember to buddy up. What team activities and strategies can you use with staff and learners to engage with the tech tools? And how can you build a community around your use of this tool and apply human-centered principles in its implementation? So very important, especially when you're testing this out. Northstar, you have a portion of it that you do assessments. It's not required for you to have them assessed, and we'll talk more about assessments a little later on. But giving the students the opportunity to just explore with someone when they're jumping in, or doing it as a classroom activity when they start, as they get familiar, we just give them a little bit more exposure without giving them that anxiety that they have to jump in right now because they have to do it. And a lot of the times it's that pressure. Sorry. Okay, so this is where we're going to look at this a little bit more. I'm going to show you ways that you could use the resources, or what steps you could take to navigate through the resources. Doesn't mean that that's the way. It's just one way where you can do that. And we're going to be identifying the resources aligned to the Northstar online learning modules. Okay, so we have the Northstar resources page. The Northstar resources section has everything you need to access supplemental resources. Among those, I selected 5 different ones where we are going to spend some time in. The first one is Northstar Quick Guide. The Northstar Quick Guide, which has 3 roles that we'll look at. You're going to have the Northstar Manual, the video tutorials, the Northstar Online Learning, specifically the teacher guide, and then the Northstar Curriculum. So this would be the order for teachers and instructors as to how you could look at the resources page. First, of course, I recommend to watch the Getting Started webinar. I think it's an hour and 20 minutes, or it's an hour and 40 minutes. That just gives you the whole scope of what everything is involved with getting ready. It's a lot less than the 6 hours that we did for last year. but it covers most of what you need. It's in there. But after that, let's say you watch that, you have the Northstar Quick Start Guide. Okay, this is going to be the refresher. You're going to from there, you're going to have the video tutorials and the Northstar manual. These are going to be your references. Okay, any questions that you have regarding how to access or how to start a how do you get students connected and all that, it's going to be in between these two. Difference is that the tutorials are going to be in video, and you're going to show, I think the longest might be 4 minutes. And then you have the Northstar manual, which is everything. It's hyperlinked, so you'll click on it, it'll scroll down, and you're able to kind of read through whatever that section is. Okay. You're gonna have the Northstar online learning, which is the ENSO. This is the asynchronous modules. And again, I'll show you how it looks like on the website side. You're gonna have the teacher guide. This is it's kind of like that manual, but it just covers how do you navigate, how do you access the different components of it. I'm gonna give you the the speedy version of it, and I'll just show you live like what you can do with it. But you'll have that teacher guide there for reference. And then again, the video tutorials. That's where you have an entire section for staff and for students. And then you have the Northstar curriculum. Now, I mentioned for the scope and sequence that's the creme of the crop. That's the document. If there's one document that you take from the curriculum, my recommendation is that scope and sequence. And I'll show you why. But you have here access to, you have the lessons. You have the list of lessons there as well. But again, we'll walk into that. As optional resources, you're going to have the CCRS alignment map, and you're going to have the unit project lesson and text. Okay. CCRS would be for those that are teaching GED or CDP classes that you're trying to gear to the college and career readiness standards. You're going to have an alignment map, and it'll show you what lessons cover what standards. And then you have the unit project lesson, which is I don't know if who's here is familiar with Google Applied Digital Skills. That it's a smaller version of that, but it applies what was covered in that module for Northstar. Now, before we go into the assessment, there's two main, well, 4 questions, right? So the first one, will the students take assessments on site? Will remote be an option for students to take assessments? Now, it's important to understand that if a student is at home, they can still take an assessment as long as they have an account. The question here refers to more if you want students, or if you want to track the assessments that the students are doing outside of the classroom, then you'll need to walk them through how do they sign in to their account so they could do the assessment. Because something that Northstar allows you to do is to take the assessments for free, but the modules are behind, the access to the modules are behind a subscription, right? So in order for the agency or the teacher to see the assessment, the student needs to sign in first to access the modules and to take the assessment that way, if that makes sense. And then here is if the students will take proctored assessments on site, will remote be an option for students that take proctored assessments? So in proctored assessment, this is where students can earn certificates that demonstrate that they passed that module. A proctored assessment has to be monitored, kind of like very similar to like a CASAS e-test, but you have to have proctors on site to either do that remotely or do that in person. And there's a slide that will talk about that a little bit more. So this will be the order for proctors. Okay, this will be like, again, a recommendation. You're gonna have the Northstar Quick Start Guide as your refresher. You're gonna have the other resources. Here, this could help you determine if a student can assess or use ENSO. So you're gonna have a basic screener and interactive screener PDFs. The basic screener is for a whole group, and then the interactive screener is for one-to-one, if I'm not mistaken. And there is a series of questions. If the students can answer yes, or they're able to identify them properly, then you say, okay, student knows what a keyboard is, or that kind of thing. Or know how to log in on a computer, then you know that you could give them an assessment. If they have no clue, they can't follow through any of it, then you can not assess them at the time, give them first some instruction, and then later on you could give them an assessment. There's no pre-post assessment. It's you when they take an assessment, they just take that assessment, and the goal is for them to pass it with that 85%. You have the codes of conduct, which will give you the guidelines for both the learner and the proctor. And it's all like in one page, so it's pretty nice. You have the proctored assessments. These are the guidelines only. You have a specific section there where they could watch the videos and view the details. And I know I'm talking a lot. I'll go through it and I'll show you one by one. But here is specifically for proctors. That's how they would get the certificates, right? And then assessment related guidelines. These will be for proctored and non-proctored. They're not, you'll see them all there. And then you'll have like the video tutorials and the Northstar manual. Again, these are your go-to. There's labeled sessions that talks about assessment. But if you're just looking specifically for proctoring, are these. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat and we could talk about it. Or if you want to unmute as well. Now, this was the remote assessment and instruction. Not all agencies are offering remote, like in general, but if you're planning to do remote assessment, or some remote instruction, here, these guidelines are just talks about remote. So in addition to either the proctoring, if you're a proctor, and the teaching that we already went over, this would be the remote side of it. Okay, so they have under other resources, they have the remote and testing, the remote learning and testing resources, and under the Northstar curriculum, and I'll show you where you could access these. You're gonna have the Northstar tips for remote teaching and sample agenda for first virtual class. This is a very handy document. Everything that you see in bold is how it's named in Northstar, so it's easier to see. Okay. I'm gonna go through a couple more slides and then we'll jump out so we can take a look at it directly in Northstar. Sorry about that. So understanding asynchronous and synchronous. So we have asynchronous, where learners work at their own pace in ENSO. This is the Northstar online learning platform. Learners can receive support for questions, next steps, and other issues. Teacher instruction is optional. So basically, you get a student on, or you give them that tutorial or that initial, they say they're going in a computer lab. You walk them through what they need to do, how they navigate, what modules they're going to work on. And as soon as they can get going, then it's just, they'll keep working independently. And if they need support, you are there to assist them. And if not, then they continue, right? And then you have the synchronous, where learners work during class time on a specific lesson or module following teacher recommendations and instruction. This can be combined with Northstar Online Learning. Okay. Sometimes you could assign the student a module and they could work independently and then come in with the work done. This is very handy if you're trying to kind of extend beyond what's being taught, or like give them opportunities to apply what they're learning so they can continue to engage on the digital skills. Reality is that digital skills in general is applied, right? It's like reading. You read for math, you read for science and social studies and language arts. Digital skills works the same way. You're engaging through technology across the different subjects, across the different skills. So the more you're exposing them, the better. And a student could be in both in asynchronous and synchronous. It just depends on what services are out there that they're working on. Select the minimum of 3 modules to be covered for the school year. And what I'll do is that after this, we'll go into Northstar so I can show you. I am interested in asking if anyone that's here, do you guys have access to Northstar? You say yes, no, and just to kind of
I
get
do.
an idea. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Mary said yes. I'll continue to go through the slide and then you could say, oh, okay, okay. And that's something that if it's something that you're going to be working on, I don't want to start conversation here per se, but you could send me an email, and if something that I need to look with the agency, who's the admin and all that kind of stuff, we could work through that too. Okay. So select the minimum of 3 modules. The application and rate of completion for these modules will vary across and within the programs in your agency. There are 3 main factors to consider. There's the English language level. So if you're looking at a student that's under that 211 score, that's going to be a barrier when they're going into Northstar. You're going to have the digital skill level, which is their, that digital literacy skill. Do they know how to use the computer, or there's students. I still remember students with flip phones in the classroom. So their access to digital literacy might be lower, right? And then you also have the digital equity across the learner population. So if you're considering having students work from home as well as I don't want to say a requirement, because we don't require students to work from home, or at least mainly agencies. Just being conscientious that the only practices they're having is what they're getting in the classroom or at the agency. So, let's see if we back up. Okay. Let me pause screen for a second. Give me 1 second. Can everyone see the Northstar page? It has Ed Advance on the top left corner.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. When you are in Northstar, your teacher account is going to look similar to this here. I left this here that you have to complete a proctor training, anyone that has a proctor training would have a pop-up that will say that they need to complete it. And then you have this here. So if you are a proctor, you'll click here and you could do the training. It's like 15 minutes. And after that, you have your, you could assess students in a proctored environment, right? You have your learner tab, which is like all your student account information. You have your assessments and all the students, the assessment that by modules and how long, how many assessments were given, how many passed, and all that stuff. You have some reports that will break it down a little bit more, by collectively or by tags. You have the location info. This is exclusive for admins. So if you're not an admin, when you click on it, it just says that you don't have access to this. And then you have the resources. The resources is only viewed from the staff side. Students do not have access to resources. Okay, so it's important that if they need assistance or there's like the video tutorials, you need to make sure that either you have a playlist on YouTube, because a lot of these are on YouTube, so you could share it with them, or you just add them if you have a document or a help desk, like a help desk page where you put it in, or the other thing, like if you use Google Classroom and you have those links there, then that would give the students the opportunity to view these without going into YouTube and figuring out which ones they need to watch. So this is the manual that I was referring to. When you go here, you have them by parts, right? This is what I was referring to. Like you have part 2, you have Northstar assessments. All of this is related to assessments. So if you do not do assessments, or you don't, if you're not proctoring, then this is not something that you might need to look at too much. But if you happen to find anything or need to look something, then you could go here and take a look, right? You have using Northstar online learning for staff. And then you have the Northstar online learning for learners. I'm clicking for the learners right now, and it'll just take me down to that section. So here it shows about setting up an account, and it walks through how do you log in and all that information. Okay. Now, because this is big, because it's including everything, might be a little difficult for you to share this with a student. So sometimes maybe a copy paste, or I prefer the videos just because it's easier, and just like the narration of what you do next and that kind of stuff. But this Northstar manual is what is how you access everything if you need a walkthrough for everything, right? The quick guide, which is the first thing that I said to look at, has it broken down by staff, by proctors, and by admins. So if you're going by staff, it's a combination of like what's in the manual plus what's in the videos. So this will play the video. You can watch it directly on YouTube, and it'll walk you through like what are some things that you could do. Right? It shows you the dashboard. Right? And it'll be up to here. Because then the next one is quick start guide for proctors. The tutorials are laid out the same way. But like I mentioned before, if I'm going to the Northstar online learning for learners, and I click on it, you see that it just took me all the way to the bottom. I could play the video here, or I could open it on YouTube. I prefer to open it on YouTube and just share it with the student, however, whatever medium you're using to give the student access to. So if you're looking at how to get a Northstar online, let me see how to use Northstar, right? So what I'll do, well, you copy the link directly here. You don't even need to go to YouTube. But I'll just play it here for, oh, you can't hear it. Give me 1 second. New share sound. Let me know if you hear it. Can you
Yeah,
hear
I can
it?
hear.
Yes, it's playing.
To start using Northstar Online Learning, or NSOL, go to our homepage and click Login. Enter your email and password and click Login. If you forget your password, click Reset My Password. After you log in, the site may ask where you are. Some locations use this for record keeping. When you log in, you will see the dashboard. The dashboard has places where you can take assessments or work through practice lessons. To work on practice lessons, find a topic and click Lessons. Then, click Start Practice. The practice lessons have videos, examples, and practice questions. When you are done watching a video or answering a question, click Next at the bottom of the screen. To go back, click the Back button in your browser. Each practice module has multiple sections, and each section has one or more lessons.
All the videos go in that at that pace. And you could through the through YouTube, you could actually play with the playback speed. So you can make it faster, you can make it slower. Fortunately, you can't share a slower speed for a student or a faster speed. They're gonna need to go and do that either independently or if you're facilitating it for the student. And again, you have like all these different topics. So that's why like that manual and the video tutorials are it's like you go to for anything specific that you're trying to look for, they may not remember. Okay. So the Northstar curriculum. Okay, this is my favorite spot because this is where you're gonna find the scope and sequence, right? So you're gonna have your teacher guide up here. You have your Northstar tips for remote teaching and the sample agenda for first virtual class meeting. Okay, this is what these last two are for the remote. And if you're trying to do remote instruction or remote proctoring, okay, and basically like if you do the agenda, you'll see you'll see like all these little things to do like before class, when you're starting the first class, how to addressing students. That right now it's more, I don't want to say that it's common sense. We went through a lot throughout the last couple of years, but this is a good review of what to keep an eye on or if you're trying to do remote. So it's kind of like a really nice recap. Okay, now when we saw the modules, we saw essential computer skills, essential software, and using technology. The way it's broken down here is the same way. So right now I want to look at I would like to look at the internet basics. So I'll click on internet basics. And you have this might be too small. Give me 1 second. You have the internet basics. You have that scope and sequence. That's the first thing that you see here on the screen. You have college and career readiness. You have this is ACES. This is for I think this is something Minnesota, if I'm mistaken. And then you have the lessons here, right? And you have your project lesson and text. Now, if we click on the scope and sequence, this might be a little too small for me to share. If you're looking at the scope and sequence, the reason why I like the scope and sequence is that you have links to everything that you need. If you wanted to see the standards, you can click right up here and it'll take you to standards. Okay. If you needed, you'll see the module that you're in. You'll see what skills are being practiced, and this is all based on digital literacy. You get what standards are used in this module from Northstar. So Northstar has a list of for each module has a list of standards, right? So you'll have only the standards for internet basics here. You have the unit specific vocabulary, and you'll see that here. And then you have the lesson outline and standards addressed. So if you're going here by lesson, let's say I'm trying to go to lesson 1, I'll have access to my lesson 1 lesson plan through the scope and sequence as well. So as long as you have that document as you go to, you have access to pretty much anything supplemental that you're looking for, right? Because here you have like all your handout information and all that stuff. Any questions that you might have with this?
So that's where the 3 modules would come from that we would pick per year, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned 3 modules, and the reason I put 3 modules is that you kind of want to have some structures, like someone that's very beginner, they might just stay in basic computer skills, and that's the only one that they work on, and that's okay. But you might have students that might go through that faster and be able to work on other modules as well. So then you're looking at 3, but then if you have a student that has a specific career goal, and they wanted to do they wanted to work in the office, let's say, then you have like the Microsoft modules where they could go in and do Excel and do Word and that kind of thing. So it's
for like
really
differentiation purposes.
exactly, yeah.
And then
but you're having go ahead. Sorry.
Would you pick those? Is it like typically, is it like 3 modules per class per course, or is it like 3 modules overarching for the adult education program?
So the 3 modules recommended by the Northstar pioneers, which are those that were using them in Connecticut before the purchase. The 3 that they were going to, and I'm going to go back to the listing, it was basic computer skills, internet basics, and using email. Right? This is like your foundation for everything else, right?
And those are the modules, right?
Those are the modules, yeah. So if you're using these 3 as that foundation, and then you might have students that'll just fly through most of it because they're very good with technology. But if their barrier is the language, then it will still take them some time to acclimate, because then you have like that specific vocabulary and that kind of stuff.
What I mean though is like for the adult education program, would it be like as a whole the adult education program picks 3 modules together, or does it like each teacher for each course picks their own 3 modules to focus on for the year? Or does it not matter?
I would say that would be an agency question, right? So if you're doing ESL and you're looking at it collectively, all the ESL teachers pick 3 modules based on their student population, then that could be something that can be done. If you're doing for GED and you have students that like in your location, there's a specific employment opportunity where students would, let's say if it's CNA, then you might need to look at a module or include a module where that could be an option. Or so it would really depend on the student population. But at least that 3 will give you that room to
so there's flexibility. So I mean, even if, like within the ESL like levels, beginner, intermediate, advanced, if those teachers wanted to pick their own different 3 modules, that's okay too, just as long as you're kind of focusing on 3.
Exactly. I mean, I would say start with 1 first. So if you're doing especially if you're beginning and jumping in with Northstar, have everyone go through the basic computer skills first,
Yeah.
right? Make sure that everyone knows how to, engage with the computer, how to sign in, how to use the mouse or trackpad or whichever. Because there's a lot of locations now with no desktops but laptops, and then that's their starting point, and then from there they could branch out to other ones.
And that's for like the year you're looking at 3, right? Roughly.
Yeah, but there's you are going to find that there's some students that will be in basic computer skills for the full year, and
Okay.
that's okay
And
too.
some may do more. Okay. But
Yeah, you
target
don't
around-
want to force them through, like, kind of,
Right.
speed run through it.
Yeah.
Because it depends on sorry, it depends on the practice
Okay.
that the student is exposed. They don't have any access from home, and
Mhm.
the only time that they're using is that hour a week in your classroom.
Right.
It's going to take them longer too.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
that's why those 3 factors are like a big thing.
Yeah.
And it will just vary as long as they're working on it and you can see some improvement. Assessing at the beginning gives you that
Yeah.
that understanding, but maybe they're so low that you really can't assess them yet, and that's fine. But if at the end they're able to do 50% passing, they couldn't do it before at all, so now they improved 50%, and that's a win too.
And just one more question, sorry. And then so
That's
the
fine.
other columns, essential software skills and using technology in daily life, do those branch off of the essential computer skill modules, or are those different modules in their own as well? Like, I just don't know if those essential software skills and use in technology are like kind of branching off of the essential computer skills, or they're all different modules.
So all of the modules are you could take anything at any time, right?
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
just, let's say in social media, if
Mhm.
it's asking you to scroll down and go to the menu and do this, or click here, you're not, if they don't know how to work
Got
on
it.
the computer, they're
Yeah.
gonna need to know the basic computer skills first.
Oh,
Because
okay.
then, so it really depends on the student. If you're doing the assessment and let's say they scored very low, then maybe, I mean, they might know how to use social media on their phone. They
Mhm.
just don't know how to navigate social media on a computer. So then
Okay.
it's a matter of them doing
Yeah.
the computer first in order to,
Right.
which
to be
is
able-
why, like, that basic, you might have a student that'll do basic computer skills and just fly through it
Yeah.
because they know how to work with a computer.
Okay. And social media skills is considered a module in itself too, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
So all of
perfect.
these
That
are all
answers
your
my
modules.
question.
So there's a
Okay.
total of 15.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Let me show you. Let me go to other resources. Oh, I'm sorry, I went too fast. So I'm back at resources. Other resources, view other resources. And then here are the screeners. Right? You have the basic screener, which was for large groups, and the interactive for one-on-one. These are PDFs, right? So this is, okay, circle a laptop. Match the computer part names to the correct picture. So this is like your basic computer skills assessment, right? Which type of cursor shows that you're on top of a link? And then they'll answer these, right? They'll go through it. If a student can't answer most of these, or they don't know what a computer is and that kind of thing, then they may not be ready for an assessment. Assessments go for like about 30 or more items for that they have to answer. So just keep that in mind when you're having students go in. If you're doing interactive, it's not like the page is interactive. It's just, please point to the mouse touchpad, to the keyboard, and they'll just point, like you'll do that one-on-one interview kind of thing. And they say here, how often do you use computers, and how do you want to, what do you want to know about computers? And so sometimes you might not be able to give them an assessment. However, you might be able to give them some instruction first and then do an assessment. Because again, this is not requirement like like when you're doing CASA C testing, that you have to pre-test a student before they go to school, start class. That's a different thing. But those were great points. And we'll go to the presentation for a minute, and we'll go back to the scope and sequence a bit. So then again, here were the modules, right? When you're selecting your three, you have to take the three factors in play when you're selecting. And if a student just does one or does half of one in the year, that's okay as well. Students are going to go at very different speeds, and we have to be have to accommodate to that too, right? And again, how do you interact with the technology is your essential computer skills. What can you do with the technology is your essential software skills. And then how do you apply the technology in day-to-day activities? That's your using technology in daily life. Like when you see like the social media, information literacy. Sorry. So where and when will the learners use Northstar at the agency? So here are just a few examples, right? If they're in a computer lab, Mondays and Wednesdays from 12 to 3, and that's like an optional that they could just walk in and use the computer lab. Or maybe you have laptops set up during that time and they just go in and use it. If you have a lot of time during ESL class, twice a week for 1 hour each session, it could be integrated into the GED lessons as mini lessons through tech applications and online resources using GED. We're going to be looking at integration in a bit. And then this here is just a reference for you. This is what can students use from the resources page. And like I mentioned earlier, users do not have access to the resources tab. So everything that it's there is available for staff, and you will have to facilitate any resource that you would like students to use from there. So one of them will be the tutorial videos. All the videos are in YouTube, but then you can copy the link, paste it into Google Classroom, the help desk, the help center if you have one, a digital document, or any other location where learners can access the document. Padlet is another good example. Do you distribute devices to students? Do they receive support in the use of these devices? So if they're using just the computers in the classroom, sorry. If there's any, if they're using it in the classroom, is there any documentation that goes with it, or like how to sign in and that kind of thing? Those documents usually, just open the browser, sign in, make sure you connect to this Wi-Fi and that kind of thing. And then like wraparound services. So maybe they go to the library and they access Northstar from the library and that kind of thing. Just keeping those things in mind as if they're accessing stuff outside the classroom. And then like where can learners reach out if they need assistance? Is there a point person that they need to reach out to if they have any questions? Is it just in the classroom and that kind of thing? So making sure that the resources that you're sharing is accessible across those different areas so they could access it when they need it. Okay, so we're going for practice. Okay, I was looking for different, I don't know if it's GIFs or GIFs. I like to say GIFs, right? But there's so many of them that I was looking at for this. So I decided to take this one out, and we're gonna do this. For the practice, this scenario. You have an ESL group that does not meet the CASAS reading level requirements to work on the Northstar modules. However, you have students working on the following websites: USA Learns, Reading Skills for Today's Adults, Bow Valley's ESL Literacy Readers. Now, I'm just curious, are you familiar with any of these resources? If you are, just put the number in the chat below. If it's a 1, if you are familiar with all three, just put 1, 2, 3. Just curious. There you go. 1, 2, 3. 1. You guys could keep putting that in the chat as I go over the practice. So the instructions. I'm gonna select and read through one scope and sequence. We're gonna spend 5 minutes to go through the scope and sequence. I want you to kind of read it through just to get an idea, wrap your head around. You're gonna select one of them though. You're either gonna select the basic computer skills. Reading skills for today's adults is great. Yeah, yes, I totally agree. So you either select the basic computer skills or you select internet basics. If you're a fast reader, you can go through both, then you have that option too. But the goal here is to select one of the two, right? I'm gonna spend 5 minutes. I'll set the timer so you guys could view it. What I'll do is I'll post the link. I might need a minute so I could pull one that you could open without I'll try the link and see if it works. We'll go from there. Okay. After those 5 minutes are up, I'll give you a cue, and then you're gonna select one of the following resources. You'll have USA Learns, Reading Skills for Today's Adults, and Bow Valley ESL literacy reader. So there's a document where you select one and you'll have an example to go through each one. And then what you're going to do for that is that you're going to highlight the vocabulary and the standards used to engage in the online resource or to engage with the online resource. I'm sorry about that. Give me 1 second. Oh, it didn't. You know what? I probably hyperlinked the wrong thing. Yep. Okay, so the scope and sequence is right here. So right now, the only thing we're going to do for step 1 is look at the scope and sequence. If you're not able to open it, just let me know because I'll need to do another take as to how to share it. Okay. It might ask you to sign in to view the document. I'm going to start the timer. Were you able to open it? Just curious.
Looks like everybody's in there.
Yeah, I meant the scope and sequence.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, I got a notification. Maybe not.
So you want everybody to use their own section?
So, well, they're looking at the scope and sequence first, but there you go. Yep.
Okay.
Let me test this out. So I need to change my approach.
It looks like the links aren't working. For the basic computer skills and internet basics.
So I'm looking down, but I'm looking at a different screen. I'm working on it. Okay, so media copy link. And I can do. Okay, this one is internet basics. Okay, so I just did internet basics and scope and sequence. Oops. I didn't want to do that. Okay, I will say refresh the page, and then click on it again.
They're linked now.
Oh, I think I stopped the timer too. Yep. We'll do that and then I'll see how everyone is. We'll do a check-in. Okay, so this is supposedly 5 minutes because I I had stopped it by mistake. How is everyone doing with the? How many of you selected basic computer skills? I guess.
I did.
Um,
Chantel.
Okay, Chantel, that's one. Okay. So if we have the way that it's broken down under the activity blocks, um, there's a US history, USA learns reading skills for today, and ESL literacy readers. If you have, if you explored any, I don't know, I see someone already started. Um, you guys could pick one. What I will do is that I'll create another block for that specific skill, and then you could just rename it because you have editing access to this document. So basically, I feel like I did have, I mean, no sense. Give me 1 second. Let me just go into the document. Here we have the blocks, right? So block 1, 2, 3, up to 6. We have 9 people here. So what we can do, everyone could have access to one and just worry about whichever block it is. So it says basic computer skills. Whichever resource you selected, just rename it to whatever it is. Just make sure that you add your name under participant. So that way this is my space. Don't touch it. And you go to the next one. So we have 3 for basic computers, but if there's more than one, I mean, if there's more than 3, which I know there would be because we have 9, then I'll create an extra block. You just edit whatever the resource is. And then basically, let me walk you through it. You have your participant name, you put your name. If it basic computer skills, what resource you used. So if it was either USA Learns, reading skills for today's adults, which the story is Joy's workday, and then Bull Valley's ASL literacy readers. And that is the food from home story. You write that here. The unit specific vocabulary would be what are the digital technology skills that you see from the module that would be used while you're engaging with the online resource. This is from the scope and sequence. It's a lot easier than having you highlight like a scope and sequence PDF document. So I just copied all the different vocabulary words and pasted them here. This is the basic computer skill scope and sequence. If you're doing it for internet basics, you need to go to block 4, 5, or 6, which are the internet basics. Does it make sense? After you check off whatever picks that you see that you would need regarding digital skill vocabulary, you'll have the Northstar standards here as well. So when you read through it, thinking of how would a student or a learner, how would a learner engage with the resource? Which one of these would apply for which of these would apply for that or what skill would the student need in order to engage with the document? So here, let's say if identify icons on desktop is a skill that student need, then that's something that I'll check off, so on and so forth. Did the instructions make sense? Or
Jose, are we all supposed to update this one or make a copy of this scope
you
and
could
sequence?
update this one. Just put your name
Okay.
In whichever one you will like. I think you call dibs. The first 3 are basic computer and the last 3 are internet basics. I'll add a couple more blocks just so we have enough. So I added 9. There we go. So yeah, just like that. Like find an empty seat. So, you're gonna give it one more minute. What I'll do is share screen again. Okay, I see several clicks here. Check boxes. Let's see. Try to refresh the page. If you can't edit, Because originally it went out as to a view only, but I updated the link, the access once I updated the. I'll leave it open too. After. Okay, you're welcome. This might have not been enough time for me to give out. But I would like to know, ask, like, you could mention, it could be either your thought with it, about it, what specific vocabulary that you noticed. And by specific vocabulary, I'm referring to like digital skill concept. Like if you're looking at, I have here like backspace. So I did the basic computer skill. I did both. I'll show you in a minute. And I use USA Learns as a reference. Like what areas that or vocabulary the student might need to know, or how to perform in order for them to work with the program. And then the standards, like you could mention one of them, you could say what it was, what program, one standard, and one vocabulary. And you could put it in the chat if you like. I'll leave that open as kind of a practice. If you even comment and pin me on it, I'll jump in. I promise I'll jump in. I'll take a look too. With the scope and sequence, as you guys type in, I'll share mine. Again, I did for both basic computer skills and the internet basics. What I ended up doing was highlighting on it. So you'll see here all the vocabulary words that would be used, right? So like it has here the hand, but it's really like the hand, the mouse pointer hand. You have like the highlight, icon. If you're on a laptop, on desktop, logging in, because no USA Learns requires a login. So then that would be one of the things, mouse, navigation menu, pointer. As you can see, there's a lot of them highlighted, but not everything, right? And then when you're looking at the standards, same concept. So you have login to and shut down a computer. So if you're having a laptop, how they would log in properly, log off, demonstrate knowledge of keys on keyboard, identify mouse pointer, shapes and functions that they represent. Usually you have to click next and that or rearrange or select the radio button, and that kind of thing. So just skimming through the program, these are things that a student would need to know, have or some experience in order to be able to engage, right? And then it continued here, like access and control audio output features for the videos that plays and the different the reader that goes on that plays. And then for internet basics, the same thing. When I did it for the internet basics, I also have the unit specific vocabulary here. And you also have like the list of standards, right? So here demonstrate to a website that you are legitimate user using CAPTCHA. I don't think it gives you a CAPTCHA. I don't remember right now. But identify address bar and demonstrating understanding of its functionality. So, going in and typing usalearns.org, let's say, identify, oh, I'm shining, huh? I just noticed that. There we go. My bad. Identify common browser tools and icons. Demonstrate ability to scroll up and down a page and left to right on a page, which we were talking about scrolling and that kind of thing, right? So as we see here, not everything that we're working on in the module, like in the Northstar module, is being addressed. However, we've been using digital literacy throughout for years. If you're using Burlington English, if you're using Khan Academy, if you're using GD.com, if you're using USA Learns, for example, or Reading Skills for Today, and many, many more, we have been addressing digital literacy. And with that, I wanted to talk about analogy, because I like to do analogies. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just present an analogy, just talk through what I see, right? We're going to look at digital literacy, but also digital resilience. So we have point A. This is where we are, and we want to reach out to point B. So if we're looking at, and I'm going to use Reading Skills for Today as my example now. I would like to get students to point B, right? This map that we see here is all the digital skills that a student might have, right? Or not might have, but a student could learn. But we are focusing on from point A to point B, and we want to get there as soon as fast as possible. So we're only teaching, or we're only focusing on those specific skills that will get that student from point A to point B. Because the important thing here is point B, which is accessing the content on Reading Skills for Today's adults. So we do a lot of shortcuts. We share the link directly. They just click here and it'll take them straight there to that point, and they're able to engage with the content. Now, that student learns throughout the semester because they'll access it the same way every time. That student learns to work on those skills and are proficient in those skills in order to complete the assignments that you're giving them in class. Now, what happens when you have a block right here? You have a barrier right here in, I don't know if you guys can see it. You guys can see that blue dot, right? Okay, if there's a block right there, that student is no longer able to get to point B, right? This is where digital resilience comes in, right? Or if a student can go from point A to point B on a computer, on a phone, they start on a computer, but they stop right here, right? Because that's the barrier. Now, how do they get to point B? So there's different ways to get to point B, right? And then when we look at it here, you have all these different routes. This triggers different digital skills for students, right? And the scope and sequence practice it helps you align what you currently have, what you currently are doing in the classroom, using those resources to get that students from that point A to point B. Northstar is going to give you the different ways in which you could access point A to point B. Does it mean that you have to take the scenic route to get to point B? Not necessarily, right? But working on digital literacy for students and building that digital resilience is showing students ways where they could get to from one point to the other, or to be able to access technology. Sometimes we don't have internet, right? Then we stop right here. There's nothing we can do. right? But it's gating students in different ways, looking at the scope and sequence as to what you're already covering with digital literacy and how you could enhance and expose the students to learn more. And again, it's great to start with what they know. If their strong suit is their phone, what can they do on their phone that you could branch out, or that you could help them transfer those skills in order to get there, on a computer. And with Northstar, there's different resources that you could use in order to build digital literacy in the classroom. The last thing I would show, and this is like additional information, we were talking about, why does it, 1 second. Let me reshare. There's one more thing I would like to share with you. There we go. Okay. Can you see the edit events page? Yes. Okay. Great. So this is the last thing I will share. We did the scope and sequence activity. We looked at the different vocabulary. We talked about the analogy, right, of digital literacy, looking at it as a map and points of reference with all the different digital skills. We looked at the Northstar standards. Now, with that scope and sequence, if we go into the Northstar online learning, right? So when you sign in to access the modules, you go into where your name is. You're going to scroll down to Northstar online learning. Oh, yep. 1 second. Bear with me for a moment. Okay. When you're signed in, you go into your name, you scroll down to Northstar Online Learning. Here's going to ask you if you're physically at the Northstar location, and then I'll say yes or no. If your agency is doing Proctor, not Proctor. If your agency is logging proxy time, it's important to let the students know that when they sign in to Northstar away from the agency or away separate from class time, they mark no. That will log the proxy hours separate. They will say like outside the agency hour login, and they'll be able to access the you'll pull that from a report. So this is the information, right? This is the Northstar online learning platform. I'm clicking in for basic computer skills for now. There are 2 ways that you could access the different content through the module. You could do it traditionally by going through, you'll click on start practice, and it'll take you from the beginning of the module, and it'll walk you through all the way through the end of the module, through the lessons. So it was 9 lessons, I believe, and you'll go through each lesson until you reach the end, right? But if you went through that scope and sequence and you looked at US reading skills for today, and you highlighted the standards that are present there, when you click on standards, you could specifically show areas that you want that student to focus on, or that you could share as a whole group in order to cover those specific standards and different concepts that you want the student to work on before they jump into reading skills for today, before they jump into GD.com and that kind of thing. So I had said one of the standards was log on to and shut down the computer. I'll click on practice. It says completed because I went through it.
When you're finished with the computer, you may choose to log off.
But then right here, it'll take you straight to that part where it's specifically targeting that standard. And then you could cover it that way if, let's say, you wanted to present it as a whole class. And they'll walk you through it. This is, a PC, a desktop. And then my guide will be my scope and sequence. I'm looking at these standards that I want to make sure that I cover with students. And maybe the students are not using Northstar, but I would like to use this as my reference. I will use that standard. And when I'm in Northstar, I could show based on that standard that I would like. I'll go back to standard. I can select which one I want to work on. If the student did an assessment, then you'll see if it's if they demonstrated that standard in that assessment. And then they could also practice if they're practicing independently, they can practice by the standards that they didn't pass. Okay, so my time is up, but I would hang out here a little bit if you guys have any questions or concerns. I will be sharing the slides with you. I'll be sharing that document that if you guys wanted to go in and practice it, you can. If you guys don't have access to Northstar, you could also email me, and I'll put my email here. Just let me know what is your role in the email at the agency, because then I could reach out, and then and again, we could, if you have any questions, we also have the tech support that we could schedule time with for free. There's no cost with anything. I'm copying the link right now so I can share it. You could book a session if you have specific questions you want to talk on. If you would like to discuss, and then it's one-on-one. You have 20 minutes to ask anything tech related. Okay, I'll hang out if you have any other additional questions. And if not, it's been a pleasure to have you here today. Hopefully we could work together if you have anything that you need.